Thank you very much. Let me again welcome you to MedZone African Motives. Let me again welcome you to MedZone African Motives. We are still on impacts of legislation on business. So we are on Business Studies Grade 12, Term 1 notes. So as we are still on X, so now we are going to be looking at Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act, COIDA. That is that. So just like any act that we did in our previous presentation, we are first going to start with the purpose of the act. So now we are going to start with the purpose of COIDA, Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases. So let's quickly go to the purpose of this act. It says it provides comprehensive protection for employees who injured in the course of performing their duties. Meaning to say, COIDA ensures that if an employee gets hurt while doing their job, they receive medical treatment and compensation without needing to sue the employer. That's what it means. Let me just write it down. We are saying when we explain this statement, we are saying COIDA ensures that an employee ensures that if an employee gets hurt, if an employee gets hurt while doing their job, they employers, while doing their job, they receive, medical treatment. Medical treatment. They receive medical treatment and compensation. Without needing to sue the employer. That is that. That's what it means. That's what this statement means. So that, for example, a construction worker falls from a scaffolding while working and breaks his arm. COIDA, Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases, pays for his medical bills and gives him compensation while he cannot work. That is that. So let us move on to the second point. It said COIDA applies to all casual and full-time workers who become ill or injured, disabled or killed due to a workplace accident or diseases. So that is that. So we are saying, in short, this act covers any employee. It covers any employee, whether permanent or temporary, as long as injury or illness happened because of work activities. That is that. For example, a casual worker in a bakery develops a lung problem due to flour dust. COIDA covers his medical treatment and compensation. That is that. Hope we are together, good people. Let us move on to another point. It excludes workers who are guilty of willful or willful misconduct, or workers working outside South Africa for at least 12 months, members of SA Defense Force or police services. So meaning to say, some employees are not covered by COIDA. It simply say some employees are not covered by COIDA. Some employees are not covered by COIDA, such as those who are deliberately injure themselves. There are those who can injure themselves looking for compensation. So they are not going to be covered. And those working abroad for long periods, like it has said, at least 12 months, or those in a certain government departments, like we are talking about SAD Force, South African Defense Force, and police services. So those ones are not covered by COIDA. Take note of that. It also provides for establishment of a compensation board whose function is to advise the Minister of Labor on application or provisions of COIDA. So, meaning to say, COIDA created a board that helps minister make decisions about how the act must be applied and improved. So that is that. For example, the compensation board might suggest changes to benefit amounts and recommend new safety guidelines for workplaces. So that is that. So let's now quickly go to the impact of this act, COIDA, on a business. So when you talk of impact, you know we're talking about the advantages and disadvantages, positives and negatives. For now, we're going to start with the positives or advantages of COIDA. So we are on advantages of COIDA. It says promote safety in the workplace. It promotes safety in the workplace. It means COIDA encourages business to maintain safe working environments. COIDA encourages businesses to maintain safe working environments. Safe working environment. So that is that. For example, a factory installs safety guards on machines to prevent injuries. So that is that. Also, it creates a framework for acceptable employment practices and safety regulations. So it means it provides rules on how employees must treat workers. It provides rules on how employers must treat workers and ensure safety. So that is that. That is how easy it is to explain this point. For example, a company follows COIDA rules when recording accidents. That's what we're talking about. The framework that it creates and safety regulations that we're talking about. So now let us come to another point. Supply administrative guidelines and mechanisms for dealing with and processing claims. So when it supply administrative guidelines and those mechanisms, it means COIDA explains how to report and process injuries. It explains how to report and process injury claims. And process injury claims. So that is that. So, for example, let's make practical examples to make it more clear. For example, an employer uses the official COIDA claim form after an injury. That is that. Let us move on. It eliminates time and cost spent on lengthy civil court proceedings. So, meaning to say, when you are saying it eliminates time, when you are saying it eliminates time and cost spent on lengthy civil court proceedings, it means employees claim compensation through fund uh, of issuing the employer. That is that. For example, an injured worker receives payment from the fund without going to court. Hope is clear on you. Hope is very clear. Then it further on says employers are protected from financial burden should an accident occur in the workplace, provided that the employer was not negligent. So it means if an accident happens and the employer followed safety rules, COIDA covers the cost. Simple. That is that. Also, it further on saying claiming processes are relatively simple, meaning the steps for reporting an injury are clear and straightforward. Report a report for claiming steps. Sorry, steps. Let me make it easy this way. The steps it means steps for reporting. Steps for reporting an injury. An injury are clear and straightforward. And straightforward. That is that. For example, an injured employee fills out one form and submit it through the employer. That is that. Makes business more socially responsible as they cannot employ workers at a random in a dangerous working conditions. So it makes business more socially responsible. Meaning companies cannot put workers in unsafe jobs without proper protection. That is that. Workers are treated with dignity and respect as a business view them as a valuable asset, not just workers. So workers are treated with dignity and respect. Meaning to say, COIDA ensures workers are valued, ensures workers are valued and protected. And protected as human beings. As human beings. For example, a company listens and records an injury complaint serious. Covers all employees at the workplace if both parties meet all necessary safety professions in the act. Meaning to say, any worker in the business is protected by COIDA. No way. Any employee is protected. Employees do not contribute towards this fund. Employees do not contribute towards this fund. Only employees pay into compensation fund. This one, only employers. Only employers. Uh, where are we? Only employers pay into compensation fund. Like we have said, employees do not contribute towards this fund. So employers pay into the compensation fund. Into the compensation fund. Compensation fund. So that's that. Employees are compensated financially for any injury or disability resulting from performing their duties at their workplace. So employees are compensated for any injury or disability. If hurt while doing their job, they get financial help. That is what it means. In the event of death of an employee as a result of work-related accident, disease, or his or her dependents will receive financial support. Meaning to say, COIDA pays medical bills if the worker has no medical aid. That is how simple this statement can be explained. So now let us move on to another point. Let us move on to another point. As it says, employees receive medical assistance provided there is no other medical assistance option or cannot claim medical assistance from the fund, and as well as medical aid. That is that. So employees receive medical assistance if no other coverage exists. So what it means is that COIDA pays medical bills if worker has no medical aid. Hope it makes sense to you, returns. It further on say, any compensation to an employee or the family except from income intakes. So meaning to say the money received is not taxed. For example, a disability payout is given in full, no tax deducted. Thank you. Medical expenses and other types of compensation are paid to employees and their families, depending on type and severity of the injuries. So what it means is that when they are saying medical expenses and other compensation depend on injury and severity, it means that more serious injuries receive more support. For example, a permanent disability gets a higher payout than a minor cut. Let us move on. Employers have to pay monthly amount to the compensation fund depending on the number of employees and the level of risk they are exposed to. So it means payments depend on the number of workers and job risk. So that is that. Let's go to the drawback, the negative side, the disadvantages of this act. Here we are on the disadvantages of COIDA. As it says, claiming processes can be time consuming. Meaning to say some claims take long process. Some claims take long process. Some claims take long process. For example, a worker waits several months for approval. So you see, that is what we're saying is time consuming. Procedures required by this act may costly as a paperwork places an extra administrative burden on business. Meaning to business must complete many forms. Business must complete many forms. So that is that. So that is that. For example, HR staff spend hours preparing accident reports, you see. So that as well is costly. So moving on, implementation processes and procedures required by the Act may be expensive. So in short, we are saying implementation may be expensive. It means safety equipment and documentation cost money. That's what it means to say safety equipment and documentation cost money. Okay? customer. For example, a factory buys protective gear and updates its safety system. They cost money. Then it further on says employers have to register all their workers, make annual contributions to COIDA, which may result in cash flow problems. So we're talking about the annual contribution may cause cash flow problems. Small business may struggle to pay COIDA fees. So that is that. Small business may struggle, may struggle to may struggle to pay COIDA fees. To pay COIDA fees. That is that. Let us move on. Employers may be forced to pay heavy penalties if they are found guilty and negligence, not in enforcing safety measures. Meaning, if an employee ignores safety rules, they pay penalties. That is how it's short and simple it is. Workers who are temporarily or permanently employed in foreign countries are not covered. So we are saying foreign workers temporarily abroad are not covered. So COIDA only covers employees working in South Africa. That is, it's short, but it means domestic and military workers are not covered. So, like we've said, domestic and military workers are excluded. So these groups do not fall under COIDA. They are not falling under COIDA. So that is that. So let us move on to discriminatory actions according to COIDA. Discriminatory actions according to COIDA. So as it says, preventing employees from specific racial groups and gender in reporting their accident injury. So blocking someone from reporting an injury is a discrimination, good people. That is that. Providing protective clothing only to male employees. So we are saying giving protective gear only to male employees. So all workers must get equal protection. So if you give it to only male employees, that is a discrimination. Delaying the submission of claim forms of an injured employee who regularly report late for work. So it means a claim must be treated fairly. So when you are delaying submission of claim forms now, it's a discrimination. So let us move on to penalties of non-compliance with COIDA. Penalties for non-compliance with COIDA. It says business can be fined for refusing to lodge the claim, contravening the act. Meaning to say, if the employer does not report injury, they can be fined, can face a fine and a heavy one. Business can be forced to make large payments if it did not take the necessary precautions according to the act. So it means negligent employers must pay compensation. Forced to pay huge amounts if precautions were not taken. That is that. They may be forced to pay recovery costs required by compensation fund. So may pay recovery costs to the fund. So it means the fund charges employers for breaking rules. Employees may take business to court for not registering them with Commissioner of the Compensation Fund. So that is that. Workers have a legal right to sue the employers. If business are found guilty of any misconduct, they will have to pay large penalties, face imprisonment, or face imprisonment. So that is that. So breaking COIDA rules is a criminal offense, we know. So they will face the imprisonment or they will have to pay large penalties. So now let us move on to ways in which business can comply with this act COIDA so that they can avoid those penalties. Ways in which business can comply with the COIDA. So here we are. As it says, business should provide a healthy, safe working environment, meaning keep workplace safe. Keep workplace safe. For example, regular cleaning to avoid slippery floors. That is that. Register with compensation commissioner and provide the particulars of the business. So that is another important, that's very important, that you are to register with compensation commissioner. Every employer must be registered. Every employer must be registered. Must be registered. That is that. Keep records of employees' income and details of work for 4 years. So you keep employee records for 4 years for claims and inspections. That is for claims and inspections. That is that for claims and inspection. Also, it says report all accidents causing death and injury, illness of employees. So here we're saying you are to report workplace injuries or illness. No accident should be ignored. No incident, sorry, no incident should be ignored. Should be ignored. That is that. Submit returns of earnings by no later than 1 March, January. So here we say submit returns of earnings by 1 March early. Annual income reports must be submitted. Levies must be paid to the compensation fund. Pay levies to the compensation fund. It means monthly and annual contributions. Ensure that premises, equipment, machinery is in good working condition. So fault machines must be repaired. Allow regular assessment of the workplace by inspectors in order to determine the level of risk of their employees are exposed to. So that is that. So this is the end of this presentation for COIDA. For COIDA, this is the end of the presentation. Make sure that you are going to show those who are concerned, and make sure that you don't forget to hit the subscription button. I thank you.